Howdy y'all, welcome back to the farm. Today we're doing something a little different. Today I gotta work on my chainsaw here. Throughout the entire fall and winter we spend a lot of our time cutting down different wood, cutting wood into logs and splitting those logs into firewood that we can burn throughout the wintertime. So in the spring and summertime, typically I gotta catch up on a lot of my maintenance so I can keep these saws running in the winter and fall when we're trying to cut down a lot of the brushwood around here and turn it into firewood. So what I gotta do today is replace the clutch drum on this chainsaw. The clutch drum actually spins the chain with these teeth. These teeth over time will wear down. And last year I actually had to change the clutch drum in the other saw that I have. It's the exact same Poulan Pro PP5020AV. I have two of the exact same saws, which is great because it makes it easy to change out parts and figure out what I'm trying to do. Because if I gotta do something to one saw, I eventually have to do it to the other saw. So today we're gonna switch out this clutch drum. It's super easy and you only need a couple of tools, but some of them are specialty tools. First, you're gonna need the clutch drum, the actual part we're gonna change out. You're also gonna need this. This plug threads in where the spark plug goes and stops the piston from cranking over when we're trying to take the drum off of the drive shaft. You're also gonna need something like this. This is a little bit like a prong spanner like you might use on your grinder, and this goes over the clutch itself to take it off the drive shaft once we've stopped the drive shaft from spinning with that plug. Alongside those two specialty tools, you can do the whole job with your scrunch. Your scrunch has a 19 and the 13 on it, and the combination of the 19 and 13 sockets, you can do this entire job. In fact, the 19 fits over both the plug for the spark plug and the specialty tool for taking the clutch off. This scrunch with the 13 and the 19, you can do the entire job with that. So the first step to getting this done is tearing this down. We'll take off the cover, which is these two nuts right here, take off the bar and chain, take off the air filter cover so that we can get to all of our internal components, and then we'll start taking those apart. So I'll zoom you in for that. Like I said before, now it's time to tear all these covers off. First thing we'll start with is the easy one. The air filter cover uses this little screw right on top. Just start untwisting that, and once you get to the bottom of the bolt, the whole cover will come off. With the cover off, we can take the spark plug cable, give it a little twist to pull it off, and then the 19 millimeter on our scrunch fits over the spark plug, and we can take out the spark. There's our spark plug. We'll set that aside for later. So now we can take our plug, put it down where the spark plug went, and thread it in. It looks like our piston's actually at the top of the cylinder, so we'll end up spinning over the drum before we can put that in. All right, so now I'm going to take my 13 millimeter socket and take off these nuts that hold on the cover. There's one. There's two. Now this whole cover can just rock off. It's pretty filthy, so we'll end up cleaning that before we put it back on. So now, let's just scoop back the bar so we can release the chain. And now with the chain off, we can just slide the bar off the studs. So now I'm going to take my my clutch remover, slide it in those two holes right there, and this is actually a reverse thread. So this will thread to this will loosen when turned to the right. What I want to do at this point, now that I got that on there, is put my plug in, screw it in right where the spark plug goes. I don't need to put this in too tight because we're just going to take it right back out. But I'll screw that in until it is decently tight, just finger tight really. And now that that's in there, the engine will only turn over until it hits the spark, until it hits this plug. Okay, so we were close to the top, so we can just go ahead and pull that off. All right, and there's our clutch. We'll go ahead and put that to the side. And there's our clutch drum. We'll end up reusing that washer. So as you can see, this clutch drum is shred to bits. You can see that it's missing teeth, that the teeth have completely rounded over, and that some of the teeth are severely damaged. So it's good that we're replacing this now. The new clutch drum looks fantastic. The teeth are solid, and this is going to be a great replacement. So before we put that back together, we're going to give this a little bit of a cleaning. These saws get pretty dirty with all the sawdust and all of the bar oil that goes through them. So we're going to give it a little bit of a spray down with super clean degreaser. I'm going to put a paper towel to catch the excess. And we are just going to spray a little bit of this on here before knocking it off with our wire brush. So that gets everything loose, and then we can take our paper towel and wipe it all clean. Now granted, this will only go so far because it won't be long again before this is all dirty again, but it's good whenever you've got stuff like this apart to give it a good cleaning. That way all your passageways, like here where your bar oil comes through, and all your other gears are good and clean, because what's going to happen is if your chain falls off, you're going to have to thread it back through here, and having a bunch of gunk in the way can slow you down when you're out in the field working on your when you're out in the field cutting. I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to give it a quick spray off with some compressed air. And honestly, that's looking amazing. Yeah, there's a little bit of bar oil coming through there. Looking good. Oop, gross. And before I do, I'll put it all back together. I'm going to do the same thing to this cover real quick. So let's spray this thing down and clean it up. All right, and there you go. The same treatment. Hit it with the super clean, hit it with the wire brush. I got a screwdriver to like get all the little bits out. And then once I got a majority of it out of the way, super cleaned it again, used the compressed air, and then doused it all in water. I would say that if you have a solvent tank, it'll probably go a long ways in this, especially getting all down into the little bits. And if you've got a brush with that, it'll probably go a long way. But to those of you who've got one, I say no, all of us have a solvent tank dairy. Yeah, so I just made do with what I have, but as you can see, it's a lot cleaner now. And I'm gonna go ahead and we'll go ahead and start putting this all together with our new clean parts. To get it all together, obviously we got the drive shaft on here. We've got that washer on the drive shaft. We'll go ahead and take our new drum and put it over the drive shaft. Then we'll take that washer that came out, put that on the inside of the drum, and then last we'll take our clutch and thread it on. Now remember, we're reverse clutch, so to tighten this up, we're going to go to the left. We'll put that on as tight as we can, and then obviously it's going to try to turn over the engine, so we'll put our attachment on there, go ahead and give it a turn. There we go. Now this is reverse threaded because obviously the engine spins the drive shaft this way. So once the engine turns on, this is actually going to tighten itself. So you get that hand tight, and then the engine will tighten it the rest of the way once it's under load. With that tightened, now we can take off that plug. Once again, it's a 19 millimeter. So go ahead and put your scrunch on there and start spinning it off. Once you got that plug out, you can take your spark plug and thread it right back in its place. Get that scrunch on there, tighten her up, there we go. Put our spark plug wire back on the spark plug. Now with that spark plug wire back in place, I'm going to go ahead and put the air cover back on. Air cover back on, super easy. Slide it into place and then spin your bolt on top till it lines up. Now with the air cover back up, let's go ahead and get our bar back on. To reinstall the bar, before we install this, let's go ahead and give this bar a wipe down. I want to make sure this bar is nice and clean, especially these holes up here where the bar oil actually comes through from the saw. Make sure all my passageways are clear, looking good. All right, with that bar newly freshened up, we can go ahead and install it. So we install the bar, same way as we took it off. Slide it over those studs, slide it in. Excellent. So we got the bar in place, pick up our chain, make sure we install it going the right direction. Now the chain, you're gonna want the teeth pointing towards the front because when they come over the bar, they should be cutting back towards the saw. So on top, we wanna make sure they're facing towards the front of the saw. Go ahead and fit that in the bar like so. Get the chain fit over the bar, and then pull it to the front to tension it a little bit, so that we can check that everything fits. And sure enough, this is going to work so much better than before. Like I showed you before, the other drum, as torn up as it was, wouldn't even spin freely like this because the chain would bind on these missing teeth. With the new drum in place, this chain is going to spin so much better, and we're actually going to be able to push the chain, whereas before it would just bind up in the saw. All right, so now we'll take our freshened up cover, slide it over the studs, slide it over the chain. If it doesn't fit right away, just wiggle it, because this little stud right here on the bar tensioner has to line up with that hole right there. So we'll get it in place, give it a little wiggle, give the bar a little slide, realize that it moved a lot when you were cleaning it.
I just know where it's down.
Okay, so you might have to loosen or tighten the bar tensioner depending on where it's at based on all the cleaning we just did, but loosen that thing up until we get that stud lined up with that hole in the bar. All right, great. So with that, everything fell into place. While it's in that place, I'm gonna go ahead and throw these nuts on. And once again, these nuts are 13 millimeter. So once we get them tightened on, we can tighten them the rest of the way with this end of our scrunch. But once we got our nuts in place, what we want to do is, before we really crank these down, let's tension this bar out by tightening it. So turn the bolt to the right. There you go. You can see the tension coming out of that chain, or the slack coming out of that chain, I should say, as we apply more tension. What we want to do is we want to tighten this tension down until we can still move the chain freely without binding it up in the bar. That feels super solid. All right, so now we'll tighten down these nuts the rest of the way. Remember, you don't got to over torque these nuts on this cover, because this cover may have to come out when you're out of the shop, when you're out and actually using the saw. So let's just tighten these down to a little more than hand tight. That locks the tensioner in place, and now this saw is good to go. All right, so that was pretty easy. Honestly, that one part I've had to replace on both saws, and it has increased the saw works so much better after I've replaced it. When I got the close-up of this part, you saw how many teeth were missing, how deformed they were. This can have a huge impact on how your saw cuts. Your saw will die on you because the chain will bind up. Your saw will lose power. It'll feel like it's not cutting. It just won't be fun to use at all. So if you're experiencing loss of power, chain binding, any of these, be sure to check this out, because this part over time will wear down, as I've seen in both of these saws. Both Poulan Pros 50cc's have had this same part fail on me. So if you're seeing that, make sure to give this a check. And if this has failed on you, go ahead and replace it, because you're going to enjoy using your saw a lot more once you do. Thanks a bunch for coming with me on this fix. This was a really quick video, but this is something that we needed to do. Like I said, this happens every year. We gotta look at the saws over the summer and spring, get them back into working order so we can put them back to work in the fall. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're interested in additional videos in the future. We do a lot of stuff like this here on the farm, quick fixes, home repairs, vehicle repairs. And if you like that kind of thing, consider subscribing so you can see more of it. Well, thanks a bunch for watching this video. I'll see y'all next time.